that I counted anyway, of Dick Cheney and George Bush trying to get a war with the Iranians, trying to do anything to trick up that war. And it seems that the military, specifically through something called Alice in the Sky, also stepped in, between actually late September 2008, to also stop a series of massive false flag operations inside the United States. Would you agree that now the Pentagon, and Fox Fallon and now the Russians are sort of the white knights operating for our benefit behind the scenes? BF, yeah! And believe it or not, most of the CIA is now with us. There have always been two CIAs. You have understand that there have always been two CIAs. The CIA was created when they merged the Gestapo and the OSS after World War II. The Nazi faction is the one that does all the drug dealing, headed by George Bush. The other faction is patriots who work on government salaries and don't make their money from drugs. And that is helping us too. There is a way to do this legally. What they are realizing is this is taking a long time, because they want to go through this legally. What they are saying is there is a legal way to remove these people from power. Almost every politician in Washington has accepted Vatican Bank bribe money when they've investigated it. They've found that most members of Congress have had accounts in the Vatican Bank with huge bribes in them. So, cleaning this mess up would involve changing almost every politician in Washington to do it right. Laughs. DW. This is a very significant point. My own insiders have extensively documented how the majority of Congress, other than the loathed Tea Party, are currently on very short notice with plans to flee the country when the mass arrests begin happening. I had heard that they would all be implicated in high crimes and misdemeanors, but this new piece of information from Fulford clarified, for me, exactly why they are so afraid, and why they are prepared to flee at a moment's notice. The military will not intervene unless people start getting killed. BF. The other thing is that the military doesn't want to be seen as the bad guys. They're not, for example, going to intervene in these protests going on right now. They are only going to intervene when people are killing each other. Then they're going to make the peace. But not until that time. We're close to the end game. Much of the world's debt was created through fraud. The other thing they've realized is that a lot of the debt that the United States has, they don't have to pay. A lot of the United States government debt was created through fraud. Of course. BF, so you can just say, hey, the Irish government. You don't hear about Ireland anymore, right? No, you don't. You just hear about Republic Tiger, PH, and now they're just all gone. Irish Prime Minister says they have no legal obligation to their apparent debt. BF, well, the Irish Prime Minister has gone to these bankers. He said, you got your right to this debt you say you owe us, but it was created through fraud. We don't have a legal obligation to pay it. Can you stay with me after the break, or do you have to go? BF, after one more break, then I've got to meet somebody. So one more section. Okay. We're going to be back after the break with Benjamin Fulford. We're going to talk about the endgame with Mr. Fulford. Break. My guest this evening, the legendary Benjamin Fulford. Benjamin, I certainly hope I have been a fan of yours for a long time, since your stunning interviews on Project Camelot with our good friend Carrie Cassidy. I certainly hope you will be a regular contributor to this show and I can have you back a lot. Can we do that? BF, yeah, I mean, maybe when there is stuff to report, maybe once a month should be okay. Whenever you have something going on, we'll get a hold of you. Feel free to call. How does it all play out so the good guys win in the end? So here's my question, because we've only got you for about 10 minutes here. If you were writing the movie about the endgame of the final conflict there between, on the one hand, it seems we have an evolutionary spiral, where mankind is very much yearning to be free. You seem to believe there is a large group of people with a large bunch of money, or should I say a small group, the white dragons or whatever, who seem to be working behind the scenes for the good of the world rather than to enslave us. What is the endgame here? How does your version of the apocalypse, where that which is hidden becomes revealed, play out, where the good guys win out in the end? We know their version, BF. Well, first of all, we know their version. They want to start a war, kill 4 or 5 billion of what they call useless eaters, enslave the rest, and set themselves up in a Shangri-La for the elite, and everybody else is their slave in a dictatorial world government. Use finance to stop environmental destruction and poverty. Now the endgame we see is that finance ultimately is the process of deciding what we, as a species, do in the future. And that is being controlled by some not nice people, basically gangsters. So if humans say, from now on, we are going to decide what we are going to do in the future, then a few obvious things come to mind of what people want to do. One is they want to stop the destruction of the environment. And I don't mean this global warming fraud. I'm talking about destroying ecosystems and wiping out species. And they want to end poverty. Declassify, suppress technology. The other thing is that according to the American Association of Scientists, DW, the Federation of American Scientists, to be precise, there are more than 6,000 patents that have been suppressed. We want to take this technology and bring it out to the people. A meritocratic system. I believe that once we get control of our future, away from this group, first of all, our group supports meritocracy. That's where anybody can climb to the top of the pyramid if they really work at it, and they're good enough. It's not going to be something you're born into and everybody else is your shape, which is the system that exists now. DW, if I were with Fulford in this interview, I would agree with many commenters, who said the whole notion of a pyramid structure is still old world order thinking and must also fall by the wayside. A worldwide coming-of-age ceremony. I also believe we should have some kind of end-of-the-world type event. I don't mean World War III, I mean like a big party type of thing. Then we could reset the calendar of the world to 0. Something really big to let people know things are different now. Like a wedding ceremony or a coming-of-age ceremony. Everybody knows after this event that it's different. We'd like to have some kind of huge global party to inaugurate the new freedom for the people. DW, Fulford doesn't delve into the UFO subject, but we may very well get something just like what he described there in the form of a galactic family reunion. The entire final chapter of my new book, The Source Field Investigations, is dedicated to this possibility. Life extension research will be financed. I've been reading science magazines for decades. I keep reading things about technology that allows people to live longer, 200 years, 300 years or more. Then they keep saying it's not going to be financed. And so why not? Why can't we live longer if we have the technology? I think there's going to be a lot of research in things like that. DW, again, my book reveals a stunning amount of cutting-edge science supporting exactly what Ben is saying here. It's not going to happen right away. I believe that we have a really fabulous future waiting for us. But it's not going to happen right away, because these guys are not going to go quietly into the night. They're trying to drag the whole United States down with them. They've been trying to create disasters. For a while they were trying to set off the Canary Islands, some big earthquakes. That would have caused a 500-foot tidal wave that would have destroyed the east coast of the United States. Are you talking about blowing up Las Palmas, which is the island in the Canary Islands that BF? Yes, they were threatening that, but I believe that has been stopped now. They don't have the money or the support anymore, BF. What I'm saying is that these guys are going to do everything they can, but the good news is they don't have the money and they don't have the support of most of the world now. Even within the United States, the people who count don't support them anymore. They needed secrecy to keep their system going, and they don't have that secrecy anymore. People now know that they have these computers where they type in $1 trillion and it lets them play God. That's not their money. That belongs to the people. Their people are going to take it back. This is the process that is happening. The exploration of space world peace, for example, would be a no-brainer. really extended development of the universe. Then of course we all want to know the truth. There's some clearly, I don't get into UFOs and stuff like this. I deliberately try to stick to the daily nitty-gritty of the actual financial system and international treaties. But we do know that people were going out into space with Apollo flights, and then the talk was that we're going to have colonies on Mars. Then everything stopped dead in the 1970s. And then you have all these underground bases and all these crazy stories come out. I think we want to have those bases opened. We want to have the news cameras go in there and find out exactly what is really going on, and what is just a huge cloud of disinformation. Sorka Fall is naval intelligence disinformation. Speaking of disinformation, you were quoting in your show, earlier, a Sorka Fall. Okay? Yes. BF, my research has shown that this is actually written by a person named David Booth, who is naval military intelligence. Yes. BF, and so, it is a valid site because it is naval military intelligence putting it out. But, it ranges from anywhere between 10 to 90% true. So, you have to be careful when you read it. Try to figure out what is probably real and what is not in the reports. DW, the key sites putting this out are wapdositmain.com and utimes.net. Also, the site Press Corps recently appeared out of nowhere and is very likely being written by the exact same group, now that Sorka Fall has been exposed and widely discredited. The name Press Corps very much seems to be Press Corps, an example of the military-industrial complex hiding out in the open by showing that the site is part of their campaign to seed disinformation into the internet community. A mixture of info and disinfo. You're absolutely right, Benjamin. I tried to preface it. I didn't have a lot of time before I brought you on, but I tried to preface it with the statement that Sorka Fall is one of those sources people need to take with a giant lick of salt. It seems to be one of those kind of radical sources that sometimes seems to be true, sometimes does not. I know there were other intelligences coming out about the Middle East that specifically were Israeli intelligence and Mossad intelligence, about certain weapons that they had and whatever else. Obviously that's what we have to look out for all the way around it. Will there be a lot of pain as the structures collapse? It does seem, though, that there is going to be a considerable amount of pain, woe and sorrow, if you will, as the social and political and economic structure begins to collapse. We're looking at the collapse of Greece. If Greece goes, France goes, because France is financing most of what's happening in Greece. DW, before we assume this will be a horrific world domino effect, let's consider what we've learned from complex adaptive systems theory, an offshoot of chaos theory and fractals. What we know is that when you stress a complex adaptive system like an economy to a point of peak instability, it reorganizes into a higher level of order, quite spontaneously. The way in which it reorganizes cannot be predicted or scripted in advance, and single entities within the system can become the cluster points around which the new reorganization will occur. This was modeled using computers that studied the behavior of a pile of sand as it formed. Once the pile reaches chaos, or peak instability, the position or direction of movement of each particle can no longer be predicted. However, the pile then has an avalanche and immediately reorganizes into a higher, more complex and more organized form of its former self. For this same reason, I highly doubt we will see a global economic collapse of any significant duration. There will be an avalanche, yes, but as Fulford has said, every effort is being made to shield the average person, and their assets, from this shift. The old cabal are being systematically cut off and it took 20 years for a Central European bank concept, the euro, to bankrupt the nations. It took 20 years for the Federal Reserve System to bankrupt the United States of America. I can't believe the Europeans were so stupid to fall for it. BF, it's like having a joint account with a cousin who doesn't really work very hard, and spends more than he puts in. Then at a certain point, you say, why do I have an account with this guy? That's the essence of it. What's really happening is the system that was controlled by the old cabal is falling apart.